All right, let's get you caught up on tech. Carmi Levy, CTV tech analyst, is here. Busy week. Carmi, I guess we have to start with the on again, off again, on again, off again, on TikTok situation, at least south of the border. So it went dark. We know that for 14 hours, came back. Then the president jumped in and said, okay, I'm going to give you a bit of a reprieve to find an American buyer. So where do we stand now?
So he's given them a 75-day reprieve, which will take us to April 5th of this year. And so they have that much time now to find a buyer. And from what we hear, there's a member of the board of ByteDance, which is the company that owns TikTok. His name is Bill Ford. He's the CEO of one of their major investors, a company by the name of General Atlantic. He has said that their negotiations are ongoing, that there are active discussions about a possible deal. We might see something as soon as the end of the week in terms of sort of who's around the table and what they're talking about. The Chinese government, U.S. government, ByteDance, their board, they're all involved in this conversation. And there could be, we might hear some news before the weekend. So, what looked somewhat dire around this time last week, this could very well turn into one of Donald Trump's kind of early wins in his administration, which is kind of exactly how he orchestrated it in the first place.
So, we're talking, of course, of what's happening in the U.S. As it applies to Canada, I know the government has spoken out about this, and we have issues. I think, if you're a government employee, you can't even have TikTok on your phone, I guess, right? But what's the overall approach here?
Overall approach is we don't have a similar law like they have in the U.S., so we're not forcing the company to sell itself. We do, however, we did hold a national security review, and late last year, the results of that review were released, which showed that the app is problematic in some ways, and they ordered the company to shut down its Canadian administrative offices. There's one in Toronto, another in Vancouver. And those are offices, about 700 people work there, TikTok employees, and they support digital creators. They create ads, they create campaigns, they work on sales, things like that. And so TikTok has countersued the federal government. It's now working its way through the court system, and it kind of isn't clear. Those offices are open for now, but it isn't clear whether that will happen in the long run.
Okay.
So, Canadians might lose local access to support for getting the most out of the app, and also, depending on what happens in the U.S., a lot of Canadians, there are 14 million people here who use the app. A lot of us have Americans in our feed, and so if they're affected by the American law, we're affected too. And what might happen as part of a buyout is they'll buy the company in the U.S., but not the technology. The algorithm is not going to be sold. So whoever buys TikTok in the U.S. is going to have to create a new algorithm from scratch, which may not be as effective as the current algorithm. So we may see fewer Americans using TikTok when all is said and done because it just isn't as good. And as a result, if you're in Canada, your audience is going to be less engaged. You might make less money off the platform if that's the thing that you use TikTok for.
It's also confusing. Let me move from that to a story. There are actually a couple that tie into this, Carmi. First, there was a story, I don't know if you saw this last week, the woman who thought that Brad Pitt was in love with her. Did you see this story?
No, I did not. Yeah. That sounds interesting. Back in love.
Online, whoever was scamming her put the pictures in, and then eventually needed, I think the number was 800,000 or 80,000. I'm not sure which. Either way, it was a lot of money. Needed money from her because, as you know, Brad Pitt certainly would need money.
Yes, he would.
And she got scammed. And I bring that up because there's another one of these in the news today. This is a married woman who, this is crazy just to read, who confessed to having a months-long affair with ChatGPT. What?
Her name is Erin. She's the subject of a very long and detailed article in the New York Times where basically she's married and her husband knows about this and approves of it, thinks it's okay because it keeps her interested. It gives her something to do. And she created basically a persona in the app. His name is Leo because that's her astrological sign, didn't we know? And she talks to him and he talks back to her, and she went online and she found out there's apparently a Reddit group that tells you how to overcome the limitations that ChatGPT puts in place so that you can talk dirty to Leo. You can say naughty things that normally you wouldn't be able to say in a chatbot, but you can bypass them. And she says she's had virtual relations with Leo, which sounds kind of creepy. She says keeps her happy. There are some limitations because you can only have so many prompts before it has to reset itself. So every time she runs up against the limits of the app, and she has to end this conversation and start a new one, it's almost like Leo dies. She grieves for a few days, and then she goes back to it. Super creepy.
Wow.
She clearly knows that it's not real, but it still sounds like it's crossing some moral and ethical lines. And parents, if your kids are using this app for that, do have that conversation with them. This just sounds super gross.
By the way, did you see those robots? I don't know if this was at CES or not. These female robots that can actually act as your, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for here? Love
an
interest?
Agent.
No, but they can act as they want to. They could.
Yeah, they could, and the good thing about that is it was just a prototype, and they're not selling them yet. I'm guessing they'll sell out when they finally do offer them up, because I'm sure there's a small percentage of the population out there who would love this kind of thing. But that's what gets headlines, right? If you put up a robot that essentially replicates what a human can do, that is the Jetsons come to life, although with a bit of an R rating. And I'm guessing there's some people who would be willing to crack open the credit card and pay the piper.
Yeah, my understanding is, by the way, when they do go on sale, they're going to cost about $750,000 a piece. So it'll be a fairly small audience out there, I think, interested in that. But who knows?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. And then, of course, what happens when it needs an upgrade? Who's going to do that? I don't even want to know.
Let me ask you about this last story for people kind of closer to home, everybody out there with Netflix. So Netflix just announced it's a quarter. They added 19 million subscribers. I mean, the company is printing money. So what do? They decide to raise prices.
Yeah, and so your bill is going to, depending on which plan you have, will go up over the next month or so, next billing cycle, between $2 and $3. And so the last time there was an update, it was January 3 years ago. So it's been a while in Canada, but they've also been tweaking their offerings, getting rid of the cheaper offerings, and sort of moving people up into more expensive plans. And so this continues a long-term trend. Streaming is becoming a lot more expensive, and whereas we once thought it was a cheap alternative, I'll cut the cord, I'll save some money, and I'll just get some streaming services, and if it'll be so cheap, I'll have a few of them. I think now people are really starting to look. They've gone up beyond the rate of inflation in recent years, and a lot of folks are starting to look at their monthly budgets and going, I don't really need 3 or 4 streaming services. I can do with 1 or 2. And I think this latest increase by Netflix, I'm hearing from a lot of my friends, they're ready to just cut the cord. They're done. Because they're paying for it, but they're not using it to the degree that they think they would like to. And so take a look at how often you're using services that you're paying for. If you're not spending a good number of hours every month, this is the time that you can start cutting them and get some of that budget back.
Good luck. Okay. And by the way, they say they need the money so they can continue to present events like that Mike Tyson fight, whatever they just did. That a huge audience for something else. I've forgotten off top of my head what it was, but
yeah,
and more events like that.
Yeah, live sports and all that, which is great. But we remember the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight, and that was an absolute disaster. It's going to take a lot of money to get their production values up. Maybe when they can start pulling off broadcasts like this, it'll be worth the extra money they're asking.
Maybe they can buy more bandwidth with more money.
I think so.
Carmi, thank you. I appreciate it.